There is nothing more shocking than Tayvin Galanakis' illegal DUI arrest, right? Right? Guys? Wrong! Because 7 days, just 7 days after Tayvin Galanakis filed his wrongful arrest lawsuit, the officers who arrested him, well, they filed their own counterclaims for defamation against him. This situation is all kinds of messed up. But today, we're gonna try to make some sense of it. Hey, I'm America's attorney. I've been a lawyer for over 20 years. I've helped over 160,000 people. And today, we're gonna break down the defamation counterclaims by officers Winters and Wing, and we're gonna find out if they even have a shot in. Now, most of you watching this are probably coming from my video from last Friday, so you already know about the case that I'm talking about. But in case you wandered into this video with no previous context, we are going to do a very quick recap. And hold on to your seats because this story is kind of crazy. On August 28th, 2022, Tayvin Galanakis, a 19-year-old college football player from the city of Fig Newton, Iowa, was pulled over by Officer Nathan Winters and Lieutenant Christopher Wing of the Fig Newton Police Department. The traffic stop was initiated due to Galanakis allegedly driving with his high beams on, potentially in violation of Iowa traffic law. During the stop, Officer Winters claimed Galanakis exhibited signs of impairment such as bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, and difficulty producing documents. Although Galanakis repeatedly denied consuming any alcohol, and he requested to take a breathalyzer test, which is like super suspicious. After performing a series of field sobriety tests in the rain, which Galanakis believed he passed, Winters finally administered a preliminary breath test, which returned the shocking result of 0.00. Despite this, Winters proceeded with the arrest, alleging possible marijuana use instead.
He knows he smells something.
Galanakis was taken to the Fig Newton Police Department and detained for several hours for further evaluation, which revealed he was not under the influence of any drugs or any alcohol. He was just under the influence of idiot cops. Following his release, Tayvin filed a wrongful arrest lawsuit and began posting videos and commentary on social media platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook, criticizing the officers and accusing them of misconduct and some other things. These posts would later become the basis for the defamation counterclaims filed by officers Winters and Wing. As you most likely know, the lawsuit process begins with the filing of a complaint. And once a complaint is filed, the defendants, in this case the city of Fig Newton, and the officers must file an answer or a motion to dismiss to the complaint. Defendants also have the opportunity to file counterclaims. A counterclaim is exactly what it probably sounds like to you. It's when you sue the person who sued you and you claim that
No, they owe you money.
Now, it's not a separate lawsuit in that it is filed in the context of the first case. It has the same judge, same case number, and everything else, but it's a separate set of claims with separate defenses and separate burdens of proof, and typically the cases are tried at one time to the same jury or to the same judge. Obviously, officers Winters and Wing took advantage of that option, seeing as how they filed counterclaims against Tayvin Galanakis for defamation, false light invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Their counterclaims allege that Galanakis made a series of false and damaging statements across YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and GoFundMe. Among the most serious were claims that Winters had been convicted of domestic abuse and had beaten his ex-girlfriend. The officers also objected to Galanakis' characterization of their conduct during the arrest, including his accusation that Winters made a sexually harassing comment in response to the breathalyzer-related remark, and that both officers behaved inappropriately and unprofessionally. I mean, they did behave unconstitutionally, but whatever. Additional statements criticized Winters' mental fitness for duty, with Galanakis implying that he was mentally unstable and unfit to carry a firearm. Perhaps most inflammatory were Galanakis' captions claiming that he had been kidnapped and raped by the NPD all night, which the officers argued were completely untrue and deeply harmful. Under Iowa law, defamation involves the publication of a false statement that injures a person's reputation or exposes them to public hatred, contempt, or ridicule. The plaintiff must generally prove that the statement was false, was made with at least negligence regarding the truth, and that it caused harm. However, when the plaintiff is a public official, as is likely the case with the police officers acting in their official roles, they must meet a higher standard and show actual malice, meaning that the statement was made with knowledge of its falsity, or at least reckless disregard for the truth. Now, Iowa also recognizes false light invasion of privacy, which occurs when someone publicly attributes characteristics or belief to another person that are false and highly offensive, even if not technically defamatory. Before we settle in for discussion of the supposedly defamatory statements, it makes sense to just pause for a second and say, holy cow, cops suing people they wrongly arrested for defamation is insane. I mean, like, Tayvin was very, very defamed by the cops by them arresting him when he did nothing wrong but drive with his high beams on. So he sues them, which is his right, and they respond by suing him back. Wow. On top of that, they claimed he didn't have a right to sue them. Only they had a right to sue him. Some of the things that he said are arguably pretty darn close to the line of being defamatory. But the idea that the cops can sue you for talking bad about them, but then claim that you can't sue them for violating your fundamental rights as an American citizen, that is some crazy, messed up thinking by the cops and their lawyers. Tayvin Galanakis filed a motion to dismiss the officer's counterclaims, which is the logical next step in that situation. After several responses and replies from both parties, the court eventually granted Tayvin's motion in part, but then also denied it in part. The court dismissed most of the officer's claims, finding that many of Galanakis' statements were either substantially true or non-actionable statements of opinion. For example, statements like Wing and Winters performed horribly that night, those were deemed to be like opinion-based and not subject to defamation liability. Likewise, Galanakis' reference to an alleged sexual harassment were also found to be non-actionable as they were subjective interpretations of an ambiguous moment captured on body cam footage. The court noted that statements that are clearly expressions of opinion, hyperbole, or subjective belief are not actionable as defamation, citing precedent and applying it to Galanakis' posts. The reason for this rule is that a person's opinion cannot be true or false. It's just their opinion. So without an assertion of fact, it can't be defamation. However, the court found that a few of Galanakis' statements were potentially defamatory and therefore legally actionable. Mainly, Galanakis' repeated claims that Officer Winters was convicted of domestic abuse. In particular, the court flagged captions such as Nathan Winters of the Newton Police Department convicted of domestic abuse after beating up his ex-girlfriend, and the chief of police allowed Nathan Winters to stay on the force even after Nathan beat the out of his girlfriend. Galanakis argued those statements were not defamation due to a protective order against Winters by his ex-girlfriend, but the court disagreed, as protective orders may be entered when a person commits any act which is intended to place another in fear of immediate physical contact, which will be painful, injurious, insulting, or offensive, coupled with the apparent ability to execute that act. Fear of abuse is not the same as being convicted of abuse. So, 3 out of the 4 alleged defamatory statements were not dismissed. The court also did not dismiss some of Tayvin's comments regarding Winters' fitness for his job, but this was mainly due to the judge not being able to review the statements because the judge was not provided the link. I mean, honestly, I didn't even know that judges had TikTok accounts. In total, 5 of Galanakis' statements were not dismissed, and those claims will proceed on the journey to trial. After the judge's decision, both parties filed motions for summary judgment or partial summary judgment. Now, a summary judgment is a legal decision made by a judge before trial when there's no genuine dispute about the key facts of a case and the law clearly favors one side. It's essentially like asking the judge to skip the trial and decide whether there was a violation of the law. If a motion for summary judgment is denied, that means a trial by jury must decide the outcome of said claim. I can't believe I just said claim like some lawyer. I don't even talk like that. That part might be ChatGPT. Anyway, some of the filed claims were denied, some of them were granted, and some of them were partially granted. To find out whose claims will continue on to trial, you're gonna have to tune in next Tuesday. So go ahead now and lawyer up with me, America's attorney, by hitting that subscribe button like you would hit a bag of Fig Newton. Do they even come in bags? Hit the bell notification button so you're the first to know when part 2 drops, except it does drop at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. What are your thoughts on the officer's counterclaims? Do you think Tayvin Galanakis has crossed the threshold for defamation? Do you want to live in a country where the cops can sue you after they wrongfully arrest you? Hey, drop your pro se opinion down below and let me know what you're thinking. And I'll be back soon. I'll be back so soon. I'll be back before you know it. I will see you there. After performing a series of after the judge's decision means a trial by jury must